Hello Fibre friends, it's Marianne from Yarnwork Studio, and today we're going to take these beautiful, adorable little singles on this little bobbin, and we're going to make a 3-ply woolen-spun yarn. So that was like a really slow way to say. We're going to turn this into yarn. We're going to ply it up in this video. So we're going to take this over into yarn. Now about this, so these singles I spun, let me find the end. I spun these are the first spingles, goodness, good start, off to a good start. These are the first singles that I have spun using my supported spindle that I got from Carrie Cherry. And the supported spindle looks like this. It's beautiful, very, very light. I could actually weigh it maybe here. But it is basically a magic wand. It makes a great prop for Harry Potter. But it comes with these removable wood. I don't even know what kind of wood. Bobbins, which I think is just so smart. So then when you spin it, I'll put my bowl down. I don't have any fiber on it, obviously. But when you spin it, you do that. And then you wrap it onto these bobbins so you can just pop it off. And then pop the next one on, and you can fill your bobbins that way rather than for people who don't spin, which is still going to be a fun video because they're going to turn this into yarn. That's always fun. If you don't spin, if you're not a spinner, often what you do is you just wrap the yarn around, or the singles that you've created, around the supported spindle, and then later you have to transfer it onto a bobbin. So this I thought was really slick. It just skips that step, and here we go. So now that I've done that step, which, you know, went from this to this to this by taking the fiber, we're ready to actually ply it up into yarn. So I will talk for just a second about what this fiber is. It's so super squishy. Look at that. So this is some guts from Melly Knits. So when Melly Knits, I call her Melly Knits, when Melly or Melissa sells guts, what that means is it's washed wool that she has scoured by hand and she has prepped, but you still need to pick it, open it up, and prepare it to spin. So then I use my drum carder. So it's Rambouillet guts from Melly Knits, and I combined it with a little bit of Tussah Silk. I wanted to kind of recreate what Melly calls a glow batt. So when she has a glow batt, that means she takes some fleece, like sheep washed wool, and she cards it up with a little bit of silk. So this is Tussah Silk from Chaotic Fibres. So you can see, like, it's very shimmery. It's got a really nice sheen, but it's like a matte kind of sheen, which I love. I love, 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 love. And I use a little bit of this. I would say probably 5%, maybe a little bit less, 5%. I have to go back and check. But it took the white Rambouillet and gave it this really soft pinkish hue. And I think it's going to be really pretty. And then I spun it on my supported spindle, and I did long draw, which means while you are, you know, twisting the spindle, you're pulling like this, and that's creating sort of this tunnel for the fiber that has air inside of it. So it should make a really lofty, light and floofy yarn. And that is my hope. And so now, without further ado, we're going to get started on actually plying it up. So I do have my video set up so I can pause because it might get a little boring. But I'm going to use my DIY Lazy Kate, which is a piece of hardwood left over from doing our floors in our house. And I never checked, but I'm pretty sure these will fit. Yep, they're going to fit perfect. These are quite far from each other because often I have my cardboard storage bobbins that are like 3-inch diameter here. These are obviously much smaller than that. Here they are in my hand. The one thing I do want to check, that I should have checked before I was setting them down, is I want the single to come off each bobbin the same way. So it's coming off from, I'm going to call it from the left side. So it's coming off counterclockwise. I don't care which way, I just want them all to be coming off in a consistent way. And the only reason for that is because I heard someone else say that they do that, and that's important. And who am I to argue with other people? I'm no expert. I'm just a fan. Okay. So they're all coming off of the spools in the same way. The other thing that I do is I have this beautiful quick grip, okay, clamp, and I use that. So you're going to see one's going to disappear off camera here, but I use it to clamp this piece of hardwood down tightly onto my table because I'm going to ply right from here. This way you can kind of see it. Lots of people ply with their lazy cape behind their wheel. I don't find it that important. And also I don't have a table behind me, so we're gonna do it this way. So I hope this angle is okay. I wanted to be able to like have this, but also this, and we can move it if we need to. But basically I made sure that my e-spinner, this is my Ashford Electric Professional e-spinner. So I believe it's from the 90s. And I love it. It was the first one I ever owned. So it's really what I learned on quite a bit. And I've got it going in the reverse direction, which is counterclockwise, because I spun all the singles clockwise on my drop spindle. At least I'm pretty sure that's the direction, or drop spindle, on my supported spindle. So now I'm just going to grab one strand of each, and I keep them between different fingers like this. I'm going to layer it over. This is just a lead line, if you will. And all I'm going to be doing is hitting the phone stand. Just kidding. I want to get a decent amount of twist on here. So I'm going to let it go a little bit, and then I'm going to see. I'm probably going to need to speed it up. And I'm going to stop and do a little check. So one of the things that I do to check is I check first the weight, see where we're sewing. This is fingering at best, I would say. It could be lace weight, but I suspect it will bloom because it is woolen-spun. So it's nice and lofty and airy. I suspect it will bloom and become like proper fingering, but it's very thin, even though it's 3 strands. I don't know if I just got lucky. When I started learning how to do supported spindle, which is recent, I just started in the summer. Did I get lucky, or did I just, is there just a trick that I'm doing that I don't realize I'm doing that has me going pretty thin? I think it's somewhat also in the prep and the fine fibers I've been using for supported spindling. I haven't tried too much of a medium wool. Okay, so it's going nicely. I am going to do a ply back test, which that looks beautiful. So I used to get confused about ply back tests. Like, why would you do a ply back test when you're already plying? Because you're not going to ply it onto itself again. But it's really just to show, you know, what the balance is on it. If there's like a big hole at the bottom here, that means it's not well balanced, if I understand it correctly. And just how nicely it twists together. I think this is a good sign of like a nice even ply. And the other thing I could check is I'm doing an S twist. I'm not even confident that I know how to use this. I think it's like a 30 to 45. 30. Gosh, I don't even know how to read this right. But to me, if I were to guesstimate, I would say this is between a 30 and a 45 twist angle, which is great because that means that's exactly what I want. I do want kind of a high twist on it. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to speed it up a little bit though, and I'm going to loosen my tension slightly. And the only reason I'm doing that is because it was kind of felt like it was tugging at me a little bit, and I don't want it to. And then I speed it up to add a little more twist before it feeds in without having to wait longer. This is feeling really soft and lofty as it goes through my fingers here. But it's not uptaking quite as well as I'd like. So I'm going to increase that tension just a tiny bit. This is a Scotch tension wheel. So it took me a really long time to like remember the names, but the Scotch tension has the tension going over the bobbin at the back of my wheel, which is off camera unfortunately. And so the tension comes over the bobbin and down around and has like a knob that you can tighten. And that makes it Scotch tension. My Louet S50, however we say it, has Irish tension, which I learned, which is over the top of the orifice on the flyer. It adds tension there and on the bobbin or something like that. Yes, it's on the bobbin. And then I have a double drive, which is a different way again. So I think that's a little too loose. So you can now hopefully see some pooling up here. So I'm getting ready to move to the next hook. This is my favorite part. I haven't done a live on that other social media platform, the Clock app, if you will, in so long. But whenever I do, they were always really great. Oh, this looks amazing. Really great at reminding me to move my hook. In the comments, they would just shout it out. Unable to ignore it. It was beautiful. And I don't think that this plying is going to take very long, but I will pause it because it might seem a little boring just to keep watching it spool up like this. And then we'll take a look at it on the bobbin, and then we'll pull it off onto the nitty knotty, and then we'll see what it looks like. And you won't really truly know the full characteristics of the yarn until you set it. So even after you've spun it, you need to soak it basically with some wool wash, and I usually use pretty hot water, pretty warm water, unless it's already got a bunch of dyes in it, and this doesn't. This has, obviously the Tussah Silk has been dyed a little bit, but I'll use pretty warm water, borderline hot, and I'll let it soak for at least 20 minutes, and then gently dry it without squeezing it or wringing it too much. And then I will, because this is woolen-spun, this is another thing that I learned during Tour de Fleece last year, which was my first Tour de Fleece. It's the first time I knew how to spin in the month of July. But I learned that thwacking is something you do, that most people do to help set their yarn. It just kind of settles that twist in, settles the ply into place when you do long draw, which is woolen-spun and woolen prep, as opposed to I was always snapping my yarn, which is kind of just putting it in between your hands and pulling your hands apart really fast. So I will probably thwack this, and then it'll poop up a little bit, I suspect. And then we'll see the full characteristics of the finished yarn. But we'll get a good view of it in this video. As always, I'll have photos of this in my stories on the other social app, which is what my primary stuff goes into, my day-to-day. I'm all over the place. Who knows what my strategy is? But that is where I spend most of my time with my yarn community. Okay, let's take a look. It's so beautiful. It's like a very subtle pink, and the 3-ply is looking really consistent, which is what I love about a 3-ply. It will fill itself out. The chance of having like 3 really thin sections or 3 really thick sections together is so small that usually it's pretty consistent. This feels amazing. It feels very light. So I'm going to finish up, and then I'm going to come back and we'll take a look at it together. Okay, so we're back. We're almost all the way through, but we ran out of one of our bobbins. So I thought I'd talk through what I typically do, because I've got a few options. Whoop. One is throwing the bobbin on the floor, which I had not done. Okay, so the first option is just to stop the 3-ply there and call it a day. But I feel like I worked really hard on my 3-ply with my supported spindle. It is not a fast way to spin yarn, that's for sure. It's a labor of love. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my empty bobbin and my scale. I'm going to see how much is left on these two. So I've used the empty one as a tear, so that'll like take out the 11 grams that it weighs. So this bobbin has 0.45 grams left on it. And this bobbin has 1.56 grams left on it. Now, I don't know if they're all the same, like the weight of these. So it's really hard to tell. But it does seem to indicate that I have more yarn on this one, or more fiber left on this one, than I do on this one. So what I typically do then is I do something called an Andean ply. Some people call it a Navajo ply, but I tend to call it I'm going to call it a chicken claw. I'm making a little bit of a tangled mess here. So this gets hard from a coordination perspective because there's a lot going on. It keeps coming off. There's a lot of strands of stuff going on. But what I'm doing is essentially turning this one single into a 2-ply by wrapping it around. It's going to turn into a bracelet that I wear on my arm. And that will become 2 of the plies. And this will be the 3rd ply. So I'm getting 2 plies out of this and 1 out of this. My other option would be to go down to singles and chain ply. But I find the consistency of my chain ply, which turns one single into a 3-ply, is always a little denser and like more tightly packed than the looseness of the standard 3-ply, which is 3 separate plies. Okay, so now I've wrapped it around. This may go horribly wrong. Sometimes I get really tangly, but at worst case, I'll just give up. But what I'm trying to do is I'm going to use this as one end, and then I've got the other end that's still going to be attached to my 3-ply in progress, and then the 3rd ply is this. So let me just get this a little further to where the one single ends. Oops. And then I'm going to join the end. See, I've done a little bit of tangling down here. So I'm just going to kind of smooth this out. The one thing I will say about woolen-spun singles is they are very temperamental. They tear a lot more easily. They don't have the durability of a worsted spun single. Okay, so I've got something kind of looping over itself. I think it's just the end of that one single. Sorry, I'm doing this off camera, aren't I? Okay, so that's just the end. What I'm going to do is just kind of pull out that end. So now we've got where that 3rd strand is ending, and I'm going to replace it with the other side of that 2nd bobbin, the one that had the most sort of fiber left on it. Now I've got 2 coming off of my bracelet, one from the inside and one from the outside, so that it doesn't get tangled up. It's hard to explain. But I've got 2 strands coming off my bracelet ply here, and I've got one coming off over here, and I can then continue my 3-ply. And what I'm doing, let's see if I can do it, is kind of like just unraveling bit by bit. I think we're going a little too fast for me to be able to unravel successfully. But I'm basically unraveling off this bracelet ply to feed in. There, now I've got a good rhythm going. To keep it going as a 3-ply without chain plying. And I can continue going until either I run out of what's on my bracelet or I run out of what's on that last bobbin. Oh, it's not catching here. There we go. And I'm trying to generally mimic the same sort of flow I had going, even though now I'm having to move my hands a lot more. And this is just to maximize how much finished yarn I'll get from this. And this is really just an experiment for me. I don't have any plans for this yarn. I don't think I'm going to get a lot of yardage. It was around 50 grams of fiber. We'll be able to weigh it after we put it on the Nitty Knotty. It was around 50 grams of fiber to begin with, so it's like a half skein, as most skeins are typically 100 grams. All right, so now we've come to the end. You can see here all I have is left of this loop, which is forming 2 strands, and then this one. So what I can do is I can chain ply the very end of these, even though it's probably going to be tighter. So what I would do there is I've got this loop, this beautiful loop, that's the end of my Plying bracelet, and I'm going to take the yarn that's over here, the single, and I'm going to pull it through to basically form a big loop. And all I do, and I'm going to say all I do, but this took me forever to get the hang of, is I just keep pulling a new loop through, and it ends up creating 3 strands coming together. So basically when I was doing this yarn, I started with just 3 plies on separate bobbins. Then when I ran out of one, I switched to 1 ply off a bobbin and then 2 plies coming off, kind of what a center pull ball would be, with an Andean ply or bracelet ply. And then the last little bit, which I'm just about to finish, I'm doing as a chain ply. And that just maximizes how much yarn I get. Okay. There we go. So I'm just going to move a couple things out of the way. This is already a much longer video than I thought, which is just typical. I'm just going to pull this over here so we can see it. So aside from having a little bit of VM stuck in it, it's nice and bouncy, beautiful. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put it onto my Nitty Knotty, which is, I have a 3D printed one that I use for smaller pieces of yarn here. I'm going to wrap it onto this and we can take a look and we'll get the specs on it. It feels amazing and looks really consistent. Those are my 2 first impressions. All right, here it is on the Nitty Knotty. And this is just a way to put it into a hank form. So let's take a look. It's always my favorite part, is getting to just see it. It will have some energy, right? Like it's gonna have these little pigtails and stuff here and there. If I pull it like tight, we'll be able to see truly what it will look like. One thing I am going to do is I just want to roughly estimate yardage. So I'm going to straighten this out. I would say it's around 27 inches long. So we'll do some math in a second on what that means. I just need to count the strands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, 51, 52, 53, 54, 55, 56, 57, 58. Okay. Oh, it's starting to look like noodles now. And you can also see it's really sort of puffed up on its thickness, as far as like it's let the air back into it. It's lofty. It's bouncy. It's definitely looking like it might be even more than fingering as far as what its finished weight is going to be. So I'm going to pop it into a hank, which I love doing. Whoop. Oh, look at that. It's beautiful. And then when I wash it and set it, it's going to take a lot of this energy that's in it right now, and it's just going to plump it away. And I'll do final specs after as well. But I'm going to weigh it, and then we'll calculate the yardage based on those measurements I just did. Oh, it's only 24 grams. So when I said before it was 50 grams, I was wrong. So it was more like 25 grams. 24 grams, so less than an ounce, but it's beautiful. And then let me just grab my iPad so we can do some mathing here. Everyone's favorite. And so here's how I math this. We had 26 or 27 inches sort of end to end, right? Okay, whatever. I get it. No. Oh no. Cancel. Just let me use this calculator. Okay. So it was 27 inches end to end, and each loop goes one end and then back to the other, so times 2. So each loop is 54 inches, and there were 58 loops that I counted, roughly, which gives us this many inches. Then I divide by 36, as there's 36 inches in a yard. So we've got 87 yards. So we have 87 yards over 24, it was roughly 24.5 grams. So 3.5 yards per gram, which is great. That meant if I had 100 gram skein, it would be 355 yards, which, depending on, it still depends on thickness and what it feels like when it's set. But I think that's going to be sport weight at best. Heavy fingering maybe. Somewhere in there. But again, I don't have 100 grams of it. I have 24 grams. But it's a beautiful mini. It's lofty. It's definitely more yardage. I always get more yardage when I'm doing the woolen-spun. But yeah. Thanks for checking this out. We've now taken this to yarn. I'm going to finish it and set it, and I'll toss that up on my IG when it's ready, and try to remember to put it in a short, but I often forget that step. And at some point, I'll find something beautiful to make with it. This is Rambouillet with a little bit of Tussah Silk to give it sort of a little bit of a pinkish hue. And I love it. Thanks for watching. Bye.